I'm going to tell you a story. I may as well tell you a story. This is my favorite story. This is a story about a storyteller. There's a storyteller in Japan. He made his living telling stories. He'd go from one village to another, and the people would know he was coming, and they'd be looking forward to his visit, and they would prepare for his visit. And when he would come to town, they'd all gather together, and they'd share a meal together. And after the meal was done and they'd entertained their guest, they'd all sit down in the evening, and he would tell them a story in the early evening, right after dinner. And then he would be provided with a place to stay and a meal the next morning and some food to see him on his way. And he would go on to the next village, and he would repeat the cycle over and over again throughout the year. An itinerant storyteller, moving from village to village, and this is how he made his living. Now one day, he came to a village on the island of Honshu, and he stopped there at the village. The usual preparations had been made. They were very much looking forward to him coming and telling his story, and the whole community gathered, and they welcomed him into the village. They gave him some simple gifts, and they all sat down together and shared a communal meal. And when the meal was over, he told them a story, and they were delighted with it. And they thanked him very much, and he was getting ready to say his farewell and get ready to go and spend the night and prepare to move on to the next village. And an old man came up to him and said, "Hello, I enjoyed your story very much, and I have the honor of offering you a place in my home tonight. You'll be staying with me." And he said, "Oh, thank you very much." And the old man took him to his home, and they sat down, shared a cup of sake. The old man prepared some simple little things to eat, little special tidbits to eat after the meal and to enjoy the evening. They visited a little bit. And it seemed as though the old man was trying to work up his courage to ask the storyteller something. And after a while, things got quiet, and he said to the storyteller, he said, "I'd very much like to ask you a favor. I don't mean to impose on you, but it would mean so much to me. There's a certain story that I remember, and I wish you'd tell it to me. Would you consider telling me the story?" And he told him which story it was. And the storyteller said, Oh, yes, I'd be delighted. I know that story. I'd be happy to tell it to you. Thank you for asking. Telling stories is what I do. I don't just do it for my living. I do it because I really enjoy doing it. And so he sat down, and the old man relaxed there by the fire and sat and attended to him, and the storyteller told the story. And when the story was done, the old man nodded, and he thanked him very much. And he said, thank you. And he showed him to his room. And in the morning, when the storyteller woke up, the old man had prepared a very nice, simple breakfast for him, and he had breakfast. And he was getting ready to take his leave. And the old man said to him, he said, pardon me, he said, I wondered, if it wouldn't be too much trouble, is there any chance you could stay just one more day? And if you'd stay with me just one more day, I'll make you a nice dinner, and you can have the day to see our village. I can show you around, and perhaps you could tell me that story again tonight. Somehow it isn't quite the way I remember it. And maybe if you told it to me one more time, I'd remember it again the way I remembered it when I was younger. And the storyteller was a little taken aback by this. He wasn't quite sure what to make of it, because he wasn't sure if perhaps he hadn't told the story well enough or properly, and he was racking his brain to see if maybe he'd forgotten some important detail. But he said, he didn't want to be ungraceful. He said, well, all right, thank you very much for your hospitality. I'll stay with you one more day. And yes, they spent the day seeing the village. He showed him the fishing fleet where they come in from their fishing, and they looked at what they had caught, and The children were very happy to have the storyteller there. He told them a few stories during the day, and the village very much enjoyed having him there another day. And in the evening, he went back to the old man's house, and the old man fixed him a beautiful dinner. And they sat down by the fire after dinner, and the storyteller proceeded to tell the story again. And the old man nodded his head and followed every part of the story, enjoyed it very much. And in the evening, they again retired, woke up in the morning. The old man had made a nice breakfast for the storyteller, and the storyteller was once again getting ready to say goodbye and move on to the next village. And the old man said to him, I don't mean to impose. I would hate to insult you in any way, but could you please stay just one more day? I'll make you a lovely dinner, and perhaps we can go and I'll show you the mountainside above our village. It's very beautiful. And then in the evening, perhaps if you wouldn't mind, you could tell me the story just one more time, because it wasn't quite the way I remember it. And perhaps if you told it to me just one more time, I would remember it the way I did when I was younger. And the storyteller was really starting to feel a little uncomfortable about this, but he didn't want to be ungraceful. He didn't want to be an ungrateful guest. And so he said, well, yes, all right. Just one more night, because I really do need to get on to the next village. I don't mean to be impolite, but I know that they don't exactly know when I'm coming, but they're waiting for me, and we'll send someone ahead, and they'll know to expect me. And I really do need to be getting on. Others are expecting me. And the old man said, oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate your patience with me and your graciousness in staying with me another day. And so the old man took him and showed him the mountainside above the village, and it was very beautiful. There was a little temple up on the hill, and it was really a very nice day. And they came back to the old man's house in the evening, and the old man made him another lovely dinner. And after dinner, they sat by the fire, and the storyteller told the story again. And the old man nodded and followed along, and nodded some more, and nodded some more. And before the story was over, the old man had fallen asleep. And the storyteller was really quite taken aback and uncomfortable. He wasn't sure what to make of this, and he felt quite uncomfortable and resolved to get up early in the morning and go before the old man was awake, because he just felt that somehow he had failed in telling the story. And this time, he'd put the man to sleep. The story obviously had not been told in an interesting enough and an appropriate way. And so in the morning, he woke up and was very quietly sneaking out of the house. And as he went down the hallway between the shoji screens, the old man popped his head out of the kitchen and said, oh, good morning, there you are. And the storyteller inside, he's just like, oh, he's going to ask me to stay another night, and I've really got to go. And the old man said, I have to thank you. Please sit down. Let's have some breakfast. And the old man was obviously very excited about something, and the storyteller sat down with him over breakfast, and they were talking, and the old man looked at the storyteller, and he was just beaming. His face was just glowing. And he looked at the storyteller and he said, oh, I can't thank you enough. You see, last night, the way you told the story, it was so wonderful. And the storyteller said, but I don't understand. I mean, you didn't even stay awake to hear the end. I must have been doing something wrong. I mean, I put you to sleep. And the old man said, no, you don't understand. That's just the way my mother used to tell it. And that's my favorite story. And thank you for letting me share it with you.